Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Forged Alliance Forever promotional series with me, your host, Gyle. Now, I'm sure you're probably getting a little bit bored of hearing me say it, but there are just a couple of days left on the Galactic War Indiegogo campaign, guys. So if you haven't done so already, do get those donations in. Donations? I was about to say donuts there. You can get the donuts in if you like. Always good for the waistline. But seriously, get the donations in, guys. If you're anything like me and you plan to do it tomorrow, chances are it'll happen next week, and then that's no good. So, yeah, like I say, crack on with that, and we can all help to make this game as uber as it can be. On to today's game. This one was sent in to me by Freshy, so thank you to him, and it features one of my all-time favourite maps. So let's head on over to Crossfire Canal and see how these guys get on. Crossfire Canal, of course, more commonly known as Pizza among the wider community for obvious reasons, but I don't know, that looks like a pretty mouldy, cheese-devoid pizza to me. It looks like just a deep pan tomato slop with green crap on it. So anyway, without further ado, let's have a look at the teams. Up here in the yellow corner, on Team 1, we've got Koecher, and he's got Cybrin, and his teammate's going to be my good friend Freshy. He's rocking the beige Volvo-style FIM, and down here, their opponents, and Team 2 is going to be Raging Squirrel on UEF. He's going purple, and his teammate Chosen is going orange. Crossfire Canal, of course, equally good as a 2v2 or 3v3 or free-for-all, and of course Phantom. But in this particular format, the key battlegrounds, rather obviously, are going to be the two middle islands. This is where I expect most of the combat to take place. We can see some early conversation going on. I did miss what that initial one was. Chosen, no Rambo, please. Very nice. Obviously, Chosen has a bit of a rep for being a little reckless, so we'll have to see how that plays out in the later game. All these guys doing very standard stuff at the opening, it looks like, all going land first, then air, with a comparable amount of P-gens, so nothing irregular there whatsoever. You can see them starting on their initial air units. Chosen going straight for a scout plane right off the bat. Going to get us some early intel, which is always a good idea. Up here we've got Freshy getting a bomber out straight away. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do with that. What's Koecher going for? He's going for an interceptor to begin with, but following it up with a bomber as well, and an interceptor out for Freshy. So very comparable setups to begin with. It almost smacks of two guys being on voice comms. I don't know if they are, but very similar indeed. And Koecher's just going to run that initial interceptor over the top of Squirrel's base, and he may just get in time to see that interceptor. Indeed, they do cross paths to see who's going to get the better of that. And the scout plane is going to pick up that bomber from Koecher, and it's unfortunate for him that Raging Squirrel does have an interceptor in the area, and that is going to get blown out of the sky before it can do anything of any real worth. He was obviously trying to look for any early engineered drops, didn't want him getting, or didn't want to lose the advantage. And look at this, we've got two identically timed drops from Freshy and Koecher, so they really are very much in sync, and neither Team 2 have even attempted to make a play for their middle islands yet. So Team 1 taking the initiative right off the bat. Look like they're going to really hungry for this. Going to grab that play for the central section of the island, or at least Freshy is. It looks like Koecher is setting up shop a little bit further back, and he's got a whole lot of engineers and loses almost all of them. Loses 2, and all of the others are on 25 hit points or less, it looks like. And needs to do a nice split here. Manages to get all of them out the way, except the back one that was following drives into the Inferno and promptly gets destroyed. But he's still got 3 alive, and he's got 3... Oh, he's got another one back here as well, so he's got 3 land factories basically up and running. How's Freshy doing on this side? He's dropped a much smaller force of engineers. He's only got 3 engineers because he's quite wisely, I think, gone for some mobile anti-air to help defend against any bombers or potential drops that might come in from Chosen. Now, Chosen might have taken that no Rambo comment from Raging Squirrel very literally indeed, because he hasn't made any play for this middle island yet at all, and that could be quite a problem for him if he allows Freshy too much time to get set up, but we'll see how that plays out. Squirrel looking to do something about the early land grab from Koecher. He's going to march his ACU right across the river, and for the moment, he needs, if he's going to get over there and do some damage with his ACU, he needs to do it ASAP, because there are now 5, 6, soon to be 7 factories up and running, and that's a hell of a lot of production power that has now gone down and is operational for Koecher. He's going to be able to get lots of spam up and running in next to no time at all. Question is, how has Raging scouting been? He's got enough intercepts in the area so he can see how many factories are up and running, and that's got to be slightly scary. Indeed, he has stopped. He's going to get some point defense turrets, so it looks like he may be thinking about getting some kind of static line of D up and running over here. Let's take a look over this side. Chosen is deciding to be incredibly annoying. He's going to go all out Thui drop, dropping the little bits of T1 artillery about the place with the transport, working on a factory down here, and he's taken out 1, 2, 3 mass points already. That's going to be incredibly annoying. So he's kind of bypassing any attack for the moment on the middle island and just going for some base harass. But Raging has made the transition to T2 land, and he's got some Riptides on the case. That could afford him a nice advantage if he manages to keep ahead in tech of Koecher. For the moment, he's just working on T1 land spam. I don't see any T2 factory on the way. I beg your pardon. There is one going up right away over on this right-hand side and is already half done. He's got all of the engineers on it assisting, or at least he was for the moment. So he's not going to have a tech advantage for long, the old Squirrel, so he needs to do something about it. Meanwhile, Freshy is moving some Thuis across the river his own, and I think with the 2 FIM on this side of the map, it's going to be all-out Thui gameplay, which is, I got to say, if anyone of any importance is watching, I have a real problem with the T1 artillery. It's the only issue I have with the game, really, at this point. Everything else has been tweaked and has been very well balanced. But I think the artillery play is a little out of whack, especially the Zuis. It makes Seraphim so very unique and powerful. The fact that these suckers can do so much damage to, you know, buildings. They can float across everywhere. They've got no natural barriers. You can see Freshy going for a little bit of an engagement now. Personally, if it were up to me and I was Overlord, which I'm not, I would make some, I might take a little bit of work, but make it so that there is a deploy time, so that they have to stand still to shoot for the T1 artillery. I know it would completely change the dynamic of the gameplay, but I think it's what the game needs, and it would make a lot more people focus on the micro between assault bots and strikers. They would be the key units, and you would use artillery once you thinned out the units to get in and do the damage for buildings, rather than being able to just strafe through people's bases and put epic amounts of fire on things. And it really would solve the kind of slightly imbalanced section that I think that Seraphim have got these days. That's why they get used so much. But anyway, feel free to slam me in the comment section below, arguments on a postcard. I will not be offended, I promise. This is what this is all about after all. Now, we've got a lot of stingers out for Raging Squirrel, but unfortunately for him, Koecher has been going heavy on the interceptor front, and it's looking like T1 for the moment have very significant air coverage, despite the fact that Squirrel has made the transition to T2 air as well. He's not got the numbers to deal with that, and so those stingers for the best part at the moment are going to find it very difficult indeed to get a foothold. We've got some renegades out for Koecher as well, so he's also made the transition to T2 air. He's matching Squirrel very nicely step for step at the moment. You can see a hell of a lot of Riptides on the field for Squirrel, and they've been doing a lot of damage on Koecher's extended base section. He's taken out 5 or 6 mass points already, and Squirrel looking very tooled up indeed. He's looking like he's got the gun and the engineering suite. Let's just take a look at what he's got on his comm. Ping's going off. He's got the T2 engineering suite and the gun. So looking very deadly indeed, and Koecher definitely wants to watch out for that. We've got a lot of Zoos working on a drop again. However, they have been correctly identified nice and early by Chosen, who promptly pops them out of the sky. That's a whole lot of T1 artillery toasted on the beach in their transports. It never had a chance. So no D-Day heroics for you, my friend. But Freshy doing a very nice job of getting back some air control, thinning out some of the defending interceptors from Team 2, and still just sort of sending a continuous stream of artillery across the bank here, hoping that Chosen isn't going to be able to keep up on the count of his smaller economy. In fact, let's take a look at the economies and make sure that he is, because sometimes you can cede map control but still be ahead just purely on tech. So he looks like he's hanging around the kind of 48, 49 mass mark, Chosen. His opponent, Freshy, pound for pound, is around the 53 mass mark, I think. So barely any advantage on mass for the moment. Squirrel is up on the 49 mass mark, I think, and Koecher is way down in the 30s, actually. Hasn't been able to focus in on any tech. However, he's got the gun upgrade on his own comm, and he has well and truly forced Squirrel back into the sea. It looks almost like he's abandoning it altogether. That factory's going to go down. The PD's gone down. There was a triad that was going up there. You can see the structure for it there. Is that a mangled triad? I think it is. It's not looking too healthy at all. So that got half built but never got completed. And it looks like Koecher may just for the moment have secured this island. Indeed, Squirrel not going to put any more fight into that. Looks like he's abandoning it. He is going to set up camp for a naval factory up and running, which I think is going to be the first play naval-wise. No, Freshy is already on the case. He has 3 T1 naval facilities up and running and already has a couple of T1 subs out. So he could do with sending those on some scout. And indeed, Chosen has also got a couple of T1 subs out of his naval factory. So Koecher is lagging behind the naval race, not deciding to go for it at the moment. And that's a colossal amount of Zoos that have got on the ground, and it's caught a lot of Squirrels, interceptors sleeping. He's going to lose a whole bunch of them. Finally notices and gets them off the ground, but loses a good 4 or 5 planes there, it looked like. And he's going to come in behind those Zoos with some Riptides and try to do some damage. But luckily for Chosen, he's got some T2 gunships, or a T2 gunship out. That's going to help him thin out some of those troops. And that early advantage of interceptors, I don't know what's happened to them, but I can't see them offhand. Freshy's got a few bombers kicking around. Can't see any interceptors unless they've landed somewhere. I mean, he's got a few down here, so Freshy has obviously taken quite the hit at some point in the air. But he is having some success with this kind of constant stream of Zoos on the right-hand side. However, now that he's lost the air advantage, these gunships can skirt around the island completely unmolested and just take care of any hostile stragglers. So I'm not sure he's going to make too much progress. But another huge drop from Freshy. 4 whole T1 transports full of them. Take a quick look at how many units that is. No offhand, so 32 plus a whole bunch coming in from the side. Needs to think about moving them though, because they're kind of just fodder at the moment for these T2 gunships. But Koecher coming into the rescue with untold billions of Cyber and T1 inties, could do with focusing in on these gunships, give his teammate a hand. And Team 2 not looking too healthy at the moment. Freshy trying to get a couple of subs in to dispatch this facility down here, but he's not going to get too far with that on account of the T2 torpedo bombers that are up and running for Chosen, and a huge quantity of Stingers out for Squirrel. He's skirting around the side. It looks like a sniper tent. This looks like very much the a desperation move at this point. He needs to try and find a comm so that Team 2 can get back in this, because they've lost both the middle islands. So much map control in the toilet. Obviously, you can see he's skirting over with his interceptors now, looking for the commander. Unfortunately for them, Freshy is very wisely at the bottom of a river, so it's well out of reach of these gunships. And he's going to have to reveal these gunships soon, because he's not going to be able to do anything with them. So I guess his best chance is to go in and try and do some base damage. We'll see if he elects to do that, because Koecher's ACU is also at the bottom of a river. There's absolutely no chance that they're going to be able to get a snipe on. Indeed, he's going to go in. He's comprehensively scouted the area. He knows the commander's nowhere to be found, so he's just going to have to go in and take out some high-value targets. He could do with getting rid of this power generator if he's going to have the bigger impact as he can. He's going to see that, I think. Indeed, straight forward. A lot of engineers are going to go pop with it as well. Indeed, they do. Koecher coming in to the rescue. Had his interceptors spaced out all over the map, but quite a lot of damage is going to get done on Freshy's eco. All of those base mass extractors going down. I'm not sure what tech they were. They were probably at least T2, you'd imagine, by this stage of the game at the 22-minute mark. But both teams now have pretty comprehensive air defenses. Raging Squirrel has picked up the torch for Team 2 in terms of air defense, it looks like. And now it looks like he at least has a force comparable to Koecher. Maybe Koecher has a few more inties, but certainly that would be a nice big fight if it kicks off. And he's also got some T2 naval ships on the field. He's got a governor up and running. That'll give him a huge advantage if he can provoke an air fight over the top of it. He's also got a nice bulwark, the shield boat, out for UEF Navy, and that really is the saving grace of the UEF Navy for you newbie guys out there. UEF Navy is pretty good, but it's nothing special in the grand scheme of things. But this little fella here will turn the tide, makes it one of the best in the game. You get a bunch of those, and you really can out-survive other navies. It really is, as far as I'm concerned, all about the Seraphim. Certainly in later tech, all about the Seraphim and UEF navies. That governor going to town as it goes past on some of the T1 anti-air defenses of Freshy. And the earlier pressure that was getting put on Team 2 seems to have eased for the moment. Doesn't look like Freshy is bothering to produce any more epic Zui spams. They're focusing on some higher tech play. Indeed, we've got some cruisers out on the field for Freshy, so he's made the transition to naval tech T2, and so is Koecher. He's got his navy up and running. He's on T2 as well, so everyone is on T2 tech except for Chosen, who did somehow lose his T1 naval factory down there at the bottom. You can hear some T2 torpedo launchers going off. I assume that's from these puppies circling in the middle. And Squirrel going to take full advantage of this shield now. He's got his governor in range as well as his Valiant, and that's going to sit there, pop a few T1 units, but doesn't feel like he can contend with the subs, or maybe he can. It's just perhaps moving into a better position. But there's quite a few T1 subs on the field, and with that bulwark shield finally getting popped thanks to the number of inties fighting overhead. That is one of the slight problems with shields, of course. You get a proper air battle going on, it's popping inside and outside the shield, that will impact on them. With that many inties, that's a lot of damage. See a couple of gunships from Chosen going to work on some outlying THAMs for Freshy, just put there for some base defense. He's going to town with a few Zuis. I'm wondering how much of this game has been determined by that initial comment from Squirrel telling Chosen to play conservatively, because he certainly hasn't been aggressive. He's been quite defensive. I mean, not that he hasn't been under a considerable amount of pressure from Freshy, because he certainly has. Renegades from Koecher getting popped out of the sky by a lot of interceptors, a lot of Corsairs and Prowlers of his own. They're just sitting on the banks watching that happen. But I guess he felt like he wasn't going to get there inside, but he certainly could have picked up a few interceptor kills and hoped to thin out some of the air defenses from Team 2. And Squirrel really is putting everything into his T2 Navy, and it's quite a shame for him. He didn't make more progress over here on the right hand side. Managed to take out what looks like one of the naval factories up and running, but it wasn't the T2 one, so didn't manage to do too much damage to Freshy. But really, for the moment, you just get the feeling that Team 2 are starting to stagnate a little bit. Got some Storks, the T2 torpedo bombers from Squirrel, making a pass over the head of that Salem for Koecher, the destroyer, getting some damage on it, but not going to be alive for a second pass, thanks to some nice coverage from Freshy's interceptors. However, those interceptors now promptly looking doomed as they run into the main band of interceptors from Squirrel. Now we're getting a nice air fracas happening in the middle, and it's unfortunate for Squirrel that he doesn't have his cruisers sitting in the middle. If he did, this would really help him, because I think for the moment he is massively outnumbered in air power from Koecher, who's gone all-out air attack. He's got a whole bunch of Corsairs, not going to be able to go for any kind of snipe, being as Squirrel's got his commander safely tucked away under the water over there, but certainly gleaning an air advantage for the moment. Chosen's going to get some of his own interceptors involved, but definitely wants to be getting his cruisers over this side. He's focusing on some of these Wagners at range with the governors, but if he can move his cruisers to join this one, that will help him thin these out. Indeed, you can see that pile has been pretty significantly thinned out. They're definitely focusing on the T2 for the moment, which is probably the right decision, especially since Chosen has now got in the mix, and that huge air advantage that Team 1 had a minute ago seems to have dissipated. That shows you just how powerful the cruisers can be, but that little band of T2 units now making their way across, and Squirrel having to get his comm outside of the water, of course, because these are bed dwellers. They're not hover vehicles. They will go across the bed, which means their underwater weapon is very much of the torpedo kind. They're focusing on I don't know what for the moment. Some of these engineers deciding not to put damage on the comm, wants to get a bit of a run by going on to do some damage to the inner base, which is quite interesting. I'd probably be focusing on the commander, but I guess he doesn't feel like he's going to be able to do enough damage to it. Perhaps maybe focusing on some of these engineers that are assisting this naval factory. He doesn't want Team 2 to be getting too much of a naval advantage at this stage, but got some of his own naval units that are nicely bombarding the frontal shores of Squirrel's Island. And that mass point has promptly gone down, and you just kind of get the feeling that the longer this game goes on, it's the inevitable ending is in sight. I don't see that there's any real way back from Team 2, barring some very clever snipe. But of course, for that, we're going to need Freshy or Koecher to emerge from the water, and I don't see any reason why they would do that. Not at this stage. They don't need their commanders. They've got all the build power they need. Got a nice shield section going up and running in the central part of Koecher's base there for some kind of high-value building. I assume he's going to do something with that, because it's not really shielding anything else. Either that or he's just using it to shield the T2 power gens. That's probably what he's doing. But it's a nice little naval battle we've got going on here. Plenty of Valiants in there to put some fire on the subs from Freshy. And Team 1 elect to withdraw. Don't like the conflict the longer that goes on. So these two bulwarks that are offering some nice coverage to Squirrel's fleet. Also got a whole bunch of torpedo bombers out for Chosen, but I don't think they'd get one pass off and promptly get shot out of the sky by all of those interceptors from Freshy, who's just pouring them out of his air facility at the moment. Not showing any signs of giving up. Not showing like he wants to go for T3 or anything like that. He's just focusing. Hasn't been forced into it by Team 2. So T1 mass Inti, very much the air weapon of choice at the moment. Hasn't been anything, any major threat from strats or anything like that. It's all very much T2 is the highest thing that they have to worry about from gunships and torpedo bombers or fighter bombers. So Team 1 very content at the moment to stick with the T1 defense. Koecher has turned all of his engineers off. Suggests he's building something big. Excuse me. Exactly what that could be for the moment. Perhaps he's just upgrading all of his mass extractors. Indeed, he's working on some T3 stuff now, getting some mass storage up around, feeling like he needs to work on his economy. Let's take a look at the economies. Koecher is on the 70 odd mass mark. Chosen is hard to tell. Looks like he's over 100. He's got a lot of T3 mass extractors. There's one nearly dead there. So look like Freshy's been doing some nice work. We've got Freshy on... he's... I don't know if he's reclaimed something. Could he be on 150? He could be. Could be indeed. He's got that middle island, and if he's been upgrading nicely, could be in a very good position. Squirrel, if I haven't done him already, looks like he's actually in the 80s. So pretty drastic differences in economy there. Lots and lots of gunships out for Chosen. He's using them to hoover up any of these bands of Thuis that Freshy is still sending in, just trying to mix things up a little bit. Hadn't done it for a while. Put some damage on that upgrading mass extractor, which is painful to lose. Not sure whether that was T2 going into T3 or not, but certainly Chosen doesn't want to lose any more of those than he has to, being as how little amount of map that Team 2 actually control. These governors going to town now, just working on these mass points. It's another T2 that's about to bite the dust. Indeed, there it goes. All 4 of those mass points are now down. That is how annoying the UEF and the Seraphim cruisers can be. Their range just so powerful. So Koecher needs to get some TMD up and running. And we've actually got a battle cruiser up and running for Squirrel. So Squirrel is really throwing all his eggs into the proverbial naval basket. Wants to get control. That's going to go a long way to getting it. Although we've got a lot of destroyers up and running for Freshy. Once that battle cruiser gets into range, however, he's going to be able to do a lot of damage, especially thanks to the coverage of those bulwarks, giving him plenty of shield. There's another one coming out as well. Knock it up a notch. We've got some incoming torpedo bombers trying to do a strafe to thin out this navy, and it looks for the moment as if naval warfare is where it's at. We've got a lot of interceptors converging above the naval fleet, but they don't want to get too close to this main fleet of Squirrels thanks to those cruisers, which will absolutely decimate hordes of T1. See those that battle cruiser going to town on the destroyers of Team 1. Slow it up a little bit more. Kerflooey, and just look at it breeze through those ships. And that has changed things significantly in the water. So things not over just yet for Team 2. But they can get back the sea. There's no telling what they can do. They can certainly bombard these 2 middle islands and get back a little bit of map control. Got a lot of the T2 hover tanks out for Chosen that's been supporting the navy of Squirrel, which is always nice to do. Hover tanks very underrated, as Zaphod was pointing out in one of his nice casts the other day. Incidentally, guys, if you haven't checked out some of the newer casters, do look into it. Check out Zaphord's channels. Lord is also doing some casts now, as well as Spaz. He's got quite a flair, I think, for the old casting. He was doing some live casting the other night, so do look out for those guys. TA for Life is his channel's pretty damn good, actually, for looking for other YouTube casters. He's got all of the main channels listed on his channel, so check those out. But look at the amount of interceptors that Raging Squirrel has accrued over the course. So they've got air control, they've got naval control, and I can't believe how much this has turned on its head. I don't really know, if anything, what T1 can do about it. I don't really see how they've fallen off this hard. It is a testament to Chosen and Squirrel how much they've managed to turn this around, though. The amount of ships they've got up and running, looking absolutely brutal, and Squirrel, looking to extend his naval coverage, is going to set up shop with another naval facility right in the center. Of course, we've got a few T3 sub-hunters out for Freshy, one of the most brutal naval units in the game, even after the nerf. They are so powerful. It's the amount of torpedoes and the speed at which they fire and the damage at which they do. You see them just breeze through a T1 sub there, as you would expect, of course, with the tech differential. But they're going to take out that torpedo launcher before it gets finished, and I don't have much hope for this naval factory staying up for too long either. Going after a few of the engineers, wanting any build power to stick on that, for that to get upgraded. However, that's an awful lot of torpedo boats, the Coopers for Squirrel, and I think he's going to have to withdraw, especially with all of these Storks coming in overhead. Squirrel going to cause untold amounts of damage to those sub-hunters. With only 2 left already. Wants to move up the bulwark, though. These Coopers are taking unnecessary torpedo fire, but I don't think it's going to matter. They are going to get absolutely popped out of the sky. I can't believe how quickly this game has turned around. So much air on the map. That is absolutely unreal. There's my once beautiful machine, now so full of junk that it struggles to keep up with a simple air fight. I think you can just see how much damage is being caused, but it's very unfortunate that Squirrel engaged over the top of that cruiser that's done so much damage. It's caused the difference between T1 and T3 air coverage. Chosen got a lot of interceptors of his own. They're desperately trying to maintain air control, but you can see finally Koecher has made the transition to T3 air and getting in behind those forces of Chosen. And that is going to make those T1 interceptors finally obsolete, coming up to the 40-minute mark in game time. That is a hell of a long time still to be relying on T1 interceptors, but Koecher has finally made the move. Freshy coming in now to support with his own interceptors, wanting to grab a win in the air, finally finish off that advantage that Team 2 has temporarily held on to. Still Squirrel spamming out the T1 inties, but it's not going to work out for them in the long run if Koecher still continues to produce the T3 ASFs. And interestingly, I'm wondering if that's governor fire or whether that's been bomber fire. Lots of engineers going pop from a nice little T1 run by T1 bombers from Chosen. That is a beautiful example of how to use resources well. Minimal cost, maximum output. Look at all of the engineers and the build power that's been lost there for Koecher. Indeed, a couple of T2 power gens have gone down. That's not ideal for Koecher, being as he's just made the transition to T3 air. Another significant air battle going on. This game is absolutely flying, or not flying in the case of T2's air. Still relying on the T1 interceptors, but Freshy is still doing the same to that end as we get into the 40th minute. Lots of T2 torpedo launchers have gone down for Chosen. There's so much going on. I can't remember the last time I ran a game at 0 speed, but there is so much going on. Trying to keep up with it all would be a nightmare, I fear, if I went any quicker. You can see Koecher promptly reclaiming those air factories, those T2 power gens, getting as much of an advantage back from them as possible. More Storks coming in, targeting those sub-hunters. Another one goes down. Sub-hunters, the bane of any naval opponent's existence. Lots of Zuis coming in from Chosen and making quite the impact. Freshy rather unhappy with the speed at which the game is running, but needs to focus in some of these engineers, I feel, to get the maximum output. But unfortunately for him, a whole bunch of T2 tanks come off the production line for Freshy and finish off that Zui drop before he can take out those engineers and take out that T2 factory. But nice play all the same. A lot of guarding units on this right hand side. We've got a chicken up and running pretty much for Chosen. That could be interesting at this stage in the game. We've got T3 tech now for Chosen as well, so he's going to be able to get some sub-hunters out of his own. Of course, we have the T3 tech for Squirrel and have had for some time, thanks to that battle cruiser we saw earlier. But still no secondary or tertiary factories going up and running for him. He's just going to be content for the moment to stick on the one. Still just the one T2 factory, naval factory up and running for Koecher. Got a lot of TAC missile defense, obviously worried about those governors. You assume it was probably the governors that brought that shield down and took out those P-gens, unless that was also a nice T1 bomber run from Chosen that we missed. It could have been either. And that is a new battle cruiser, so the other one obviously bit the dust. This one doesn't have any kills for the moment, but could do some pretty serious damage if all of that force gets in there. That would probably be my port of call, and that seems like the way he's doing. So many shield boats out for Squirrel. It's definitely going to cause Koecher some headaches. And what he's doing to try and deal with, still producing ASFs for the moment. He's working on some rear T3 power, which is probably an excellent move. Doesn't want to focus on getting any more up and running. You can see the power trouble he's having. His shield gens can't stay up and running, and that's not what you need when you've got all of these TAC missiles coming in and focusing on your T2 power gens, where you're trying to get T3 up and running. Oh, TAC missile for the fence, just doing enough. It's on 60 hit points, but that won't be enough. That goes down, but just in time. A T3 power gen goes up and running, and that should probably sort his power situation. It actually doesn't. He's still running at a deficit of over 1,100 power units, so he needs to get another one up and running, and also needs to protect that T2 for the moment. But battle cruiser operational and closing in on the naval facilities of Koecher, and Koecher, having looked so strong against Squirrel for the majority of this game, is now looking like he's in a little bit of trouble. And ground not being given by Chosen either, thanks to these T2 torpedo launchers that he's managed to get up in the middle. But a battleship up and running for Freshy, and that's going to work very nicely for him. But I can hear that chicken going off. Where is it? There he is. And he's just picked up 73 kills. That was all of the T1 units that were chilling, offering some protection to the side of Freshy's base, but turns out absolutely no protection at all. So this game's turned absolutely on its head as we head into the 45-minute mark, and the quantity of governors is just extraordinary. That battle cruiser finally does go down, thanks to, I think, a combination of Corsair fire and destroyers. But that's a lot of TAC missiles coming in from those governors. You can see, though, that it's that facility is actually managing to tank it, thanks to the sheer quantity of T1 engineers. And amazingly, Koecher has managed to repel that, and unfortunately for Squirrel, he is running right past the whole horde of sub-hunters that are just going to tear into those governors. I don't think any of them are going to get out alive. Some of them may. This one looks like it's going to, as Freshy pulls his sub-hunters away. But we've now got T3 air for Squirrel, so everybody has made, or both teams have made, the transition, and Freshy has as well, and so has Chosen. So everybody has seen the maneuver that Koecher has made to T3 air and had to make the same. And Freshy getting some strap bombers and T2 gunships out onto the case to try and deal with that chicken. That strap bomber goes down to some of Chosen's ASFs. Question is, will this chicken make it into water before it goes down? I think it probably will. They just don't have the gunships to deal with it. And as it makes landfall, that could cause all kind of problems to the naval facilities of Freshy, which are spewing out those sub-hunters. So Team 1 don't want that to happen if at all possible. You can see sub-hunters out on the field for Chosen, just dealing with one of Koecher's cruisers. That's a good point. Can the chicken even submerge on this map? Just about just about can, but there's so many sub-hunters, it's not safe at all, and he's actually taking way more damage underneath the water than he did when he was taking fire from those gunships, and that it goes down in the water. And of course Freshy has to withdraw all of his engineers to keep them safe from the ion storm. I don't think that's going to cause too much damage. The T3 factories are pretty hardy, lots of hit points on those. You can see 36,000 or 38,000 of them from Fresh, but yeah, very interesting. I can't believe how much has changed in this game. We have a strategic missile launcher going up for Koecher, and that could really change things. I'll have to see if any of these guys have had a chance to get any nuke defense up and running. There's certainly none up and running in the base for Squirrel. Does Chosen have any? Not that I can see. He's getting a comm upgrade. Of course, it's all going to come down to whether or not that gets scouted. Really see the need for these power gens now. Of course, he's linked it up to 2 T3s, so he's getting another shield gen up and running to keep it safe. So that really could be a game ender right there if that doesn't get discovered. As we head into the 47-minute mark, Freshy said this was a good game, and he's not wrong. It's always nice to see pros get to this stage, and I think this is what's interesting about Crossfire Canal, is it's one of those maps that promotes the longer games, purely because of the relief of the land, you know, the wall sections that impede the routes that land units have to take to get anywhere, means they're very vulnerable to defensive fire. That battleship doing its best to work on those missiles coming in from the governors. It's interesting that Team 2 don't decide to move their navy in, because with that battlecruiser and the sub-hunters and all of the bulwark coverage that they've got, they could deal with this battleship without any real difficulty. I guess they're feeling like they want to put extra damage on it at range and stay out of any potential counterfire. Freshy is going to respond now by pulling out himself. Got a few reinforcing naval units, excuse me, coming in from Koecher. I don't know whether all of those shields have been taken down or whether Squirrel is just out of power. No, his power's doing fine, so just the sheer amount of fire that's coming in from Team 1 has kind of nullified the advantage he was getting from those bulwarks. Of course, that battleship able to stay at range. Huge range on those battleships. We take a look at how far they go. Absolutely colossal. Very nice indeed. Cooper's going down left, right and centre. It's definitely where UEF can be a little bit weak, is on the torpedo subfront. It's tough to say who has the advantage in the air at the moment. I think it's slightly in favour of Team 1. And that threat has been spied by Chosen. He manages to get a whole bunch of gunships in there, but I don't think he's going to be able to take down any of these power gens. You just look at the response time of ASFs on a map of this size. It's not too long. So those promptly get popped out of the sky. It's been pinged. He looked like he was pinging the commander, who has an upgrade going on. But I don't know if he was actually... If they noticed the strategic missile launcher, a good indication will be whether or not they are hurrying up any kind of missile defense. I don't see any going on in Squirrel's base. We have got a strategic missile defense up and running, so that went up very quickly indeed, but he's a long ways from getting a missile in it. He is getting a missile launcher up and running as well, but for the moment at least, both members of Team 2 looking like they're pretty vulnerable. We've got a pretty heavy engineer drop coming into the centre, probably going after all that mass that's lingering in the form of shipwrecks. And that's one of the beautiful things about the FAF upgrades as well. I'm not sure when it came in, but back in the GPG days when I used to play, you used to get persistent naval wrecks at the bottom. And now you do. And it's a lovely reclaimable treat for all the players. You can see there's virtually no time left on that nuke whatsoever. And Team 2 need to somehow dispatch that or get some nuke defense up and running, or that will probably be what ends the game. Gunships coming in to try and tidy up some of these hover tanks. But Freshy is on the case. You imagine they're not long for this world. Doesn't decide to commit. Doesn't want to get involved with any of Team 2's ASFs, especially not over the top of these governors. Or there is just one governor there, but still, it's an advantage that they don't want to give away. So Chosen, obviously knowing that, hugging close to those shields, close to that cruiser, saw targets of opportunity and went for it. Lots of strap bombers in the air, so clearly that's what the pinging was about. Team 2 wanting to get a snipe on, but the missile launcher is up and running, and there it goes. They decide to get some missile defense up and running of their own, and that, I think, is going to be absolutely crucial. You can see a few ASFs going after some of the strap bombers or belonging to Squirrel, but wisely going straight after Chosen before that missile can get a defensive missile launcher can get one in the clip or in the chamber, and that nuke is probably going to signal the game. Chosen getting his commander out of there in the transport just in time. And that surely is going to weaken Team 2 to the point where they're going to fold. Wasn't ready. No, indeed you weren't. So that's nice work from Koecher, getting the advantage back for his team. So honestly, the rate this game was going, I don't know how they were managing it, but it did look like the impetus was beginning to shift towards or in favor of Team 2. Squirrel got his commander in a very bad position indeed. Needs to get back inside the shield. Team 1 pinging it furiously. Oh my god. And that's so unfortunate. Very nice snag there from Freshy. And that's why at this stage of the game you've got to be so careful with the placement of your commander. You've got to be watching it all the time, because the amount of units on the field that are capable of taking it out next to no time. You saw how quickly he plummeted there. Absolutely wasted. And that is going to be game right there. Team 1 closing in for the kill on Chosen, whose base is recently destroyed in that nuclear explosion. His teammate now gone thanks to a slight mistake. And Team 1 looking like they're going to emerge victorious. Chosen has gone for a drop, has probably had some kind of long-term plan, some kind of base building exercises he's going to get done on the cliff behind Freshy's base. You never know what's going to be planned, some kind of TAC missile strike or something like that. He'd be perfectly capable of doing so because they're all T2 engineers, so that would have been nice. Where's he going to? He's planning to go for here. If we take a look at what that entails, get a range finder on the TAC missile. He's getting some up in range, but Freshy is under Chosen is under attack. He's got his commander in the remnants of his old base, but promptly gets destroyed by a nice little Corsair run by. So Koecher coming back in fine style. He had some strap bombers in there as well, which is why he was able to take it down so quickly. But there was never really any hope of Team 2 getting back into that game after the departure of Squirrel. Possibly could have done something after the nuke, but with Squirrel going down like that, there was no hope. I really hope you enjoyed that. It's 56-minute game. The best part of. I certainly did. And that's the sort of game we want, guys. You have games like that, send them in. Well done, Freshy, for digging that one out. I'm glad I can finally give you a replay. I think in the last couple of days, or at least the last week, sorry, I have put out 2 consecutive replays in which Freshy lost. So Freshy obviously dug that one out of his replay vault. He was like, enough of this, I do actually win games. So nicely done, my son. Very well played, but well played by everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Until the next time, stay safe. More coming soon. For now, this is Gyle signing out.